Has Atlanta's major draft gamble on James Pearce Jr. been worth it? James Pearce Jr. was one of the most polarizing prospects in the 2025 NFL Draft. The Falcons did not care, though, as Atlanta traded 2 2025 draft picks and a 2026 first-rounder to the Rams for the right to draft Pearce at the bottom of the first in 2025. Now out of the playoffs, Atlanta does not have a first-round pick in the upcoming draft, one that could be a top 10 pick, going to the Rams. At the same time, James Pearce has been the NFL's best rookie pass rusher this season. Will any of this actually pay off for Atlanta? Okay, let's look at some game tape here, specifically James Pearce converting some speed to power, his struggles against the run, and his ability to be a game wrecker. I'll also be joined by our senior writer covering the Falcons, Josh Kendall, from right outside the Atlanta Falcons practice facility to talk more about James Pearce, his fit with the team, and his future in Atlanta. Here we'll see him convert his speed to power. James Pearce is 6'5", about 245 pounds, got really long arms, and he's like a track sprinter. He's an all-out athlete off the edge, was a complete terror in the SEC for his entire 3-year career. We see these stunts all the time, right? We see things like this quite a bit. Normally, though, when you see this defensive end before we run it, they take that hard step forward, and they have to sort of stop and gather themselves before they can pick their body up and get back around and loop into the center. Pearce he doesn't need to do any of that. He skips a lot of steps, as we're going to see here in a second. He just kind of teleports right down the line and closes out gaps, and then boom, right into the center. And right out of nowhere, he creates an incomplete pass that, on the surface, this doesn't look like it's going to be a problem, but his ability to move that fast down the line, we're going to see it on the back end in a second, and then give the center shock after that speed build-up in just like 5 steps is really, really impressive. Not a lot of guys can get down the line that quick and that smooth. You can see how he just goes right through, and then bang, right through the center and into Baker Mayfield. Speed to power, he's only 245 pounds, but he generates so much more power than a guy his size does with his hands and his entire body. Let's welcome Josh in now to talk more about James Pearce and his freaky athleticism.
It has worked out thus far exactly like they hoped it would. He has buckled down. He has, Jeff Ulbrich mentioned last week about he asked for a rep to be repeated 3 times one day in practice, and that's what they were hoping he would do. They were hoping he would embrace it. Thus far, he has. I think he needs to continue to close strong to build on some of this momentum. But right now, they're happy with the pick.
So we've seen the want to. So, that was a big question, right? The attitude in the draft. Everybody talked about that pre-draft.
They've actually loved it. I mean, his first week of practice, he started brawl is too strong a word, but he started as good a practice fight as I've seen in a long time with a couple of the veteran offensive linemen. To the point that one of them was screaming at him, and his coaches privately loved it. They were excited, and he has managed to stay on the right side of that line. These same teammates who he was, scuffling with in the preseason, they're all big friends now. I think that they understood that they were getting a certain type of personality, but also believed that they needed some of that personality, and they were going to have to take the risk of the other part.
All right, here we're going to see part of the problem with Pearce, though, on the field, which is his run defense, and why you really can't play him on first and second down with a lot of faith right now. We're going to see the Bucs run what's called a pin pull, so we're going to see the center and the backside guard pull across, and it's really simple for James Pearce at this point. All he needs to do is come down through here, see the center pulling, and then just take the guy on. Take the guy on, set an edge as best you can, and then allow your help, the linebackers and anybody else who's running, to come through and make the tackle. You're not going to make the tackle, but you can't leave your teammates out to dry, and that's exactly what he does, as we saw right there. Jumps out of the gap, decides not to take on the puller, and when you don't do that, if he's to take him on right here when we freeze it, he's going to create a dent, he's going to create traffic, he's going to create a problem. The other puller is going to get backed up into him. Maybe the back has to bounce it. A lot of things could happen. He's just creating chaos, and all of these guys right here have time then to run downhill and get to the running back. He doesn't do any of that. He jumps out of the gap, tries to go in from behind, tries to do his own thing. This is terrible football, quite honestly. And then the thing I really don't like about it, and this I think is why some of the scouts got upset on tape when they watched him, is there's not a lot of want to get back in the play there. He's sort of just like lollygagging, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. But there could have been a harder effort to get back to the ball there. You don't like to dog on guys' efforts very much, but this is tough to sort of defend. I'm curious what Josh has heard from Raheem Morris about this. On the field, there's still some room to grow here, especially as a run defender. That was a big thing coming out of Tennessee. He's all pass rush. Can you play him on first and second down? That's always been a big question. What is Atlanta's read right now with what he's given them as a run defender?
I mean, you can, but right now you shouldn't.
Right.
He's got 20 tackles. I mean, it's probably 20 more than they expected. He is a pass rusher. He is always going to be a pass rusher. Yes, I think that they want him to develop into an all-around player, but this is going to be a process with James Pearce throughout his career probably. And right now, they're delighted that he's produced where they thought he would produce right away, which is the sacks. And they'll worry about the rest as it comes. But is there a possibility that he's never a significant first down player in this league? Absolutely. And could he be a productive player without that? Absolutely.
Okay, so the biggest reason to buy on James Pearce, with all the other stuff aside, is that he has the ability in limited reps to just completely destroy a game and take it over by himself. This was a 1-point game against the Bucs. He had 2 sacks and 6 pressures. Every one of them was important, and every one of them was a difference maker in that game. Here we're going to see, this is a coverage sack, but do you see the effort, the slipperiness, and the ability to go all the way through and find his way home, right? We just talked about him sort of giving up the effort there on the run. He does not do that when there's a sack on the line. That's why I don't think effort is necessarily a problem for him. I just think he still needs to learn how to become more of a complete football player. When that happens, the potential here is off the charts. This guy made plays almost every time he was on the field in this game, and he's just really difficult, even if you have things taken care of, like right here. This is a nice job by 67 of getting his hands on him, anchoring through. He thinks, I've got this rep 1, we're fine, even if Baker needs a little bit more time in the pocket. But it's just, look, he's got the long arms, he's wiggling off of him. He's just so difficult to deal with at 6'5", 245 pounds, that a lot of tackles just do not have the sustainability or the athletic balance or anything else required to hang with him. So this is a game wrecker, absolutely, all the way through. He just needs to be a more complete game wrecker to become worth it, I think, for the Falcons. Let's go back to Josh for more on how Pearce has been a huge problem for opposing offenses.
Certainly he's gotten some attention, but he's never had trouble with that part of it. You know, the sort of the physical. He's a hard guy to chip. He's a hard guy to help on because he does have such speed around the edge. So teams certainly are paying him more attention. So far, it hasn't mattered. We'll see if that ramps up down the stretch. But I still think he's a guy who is going to get his opportunities. And like you say, he's probably had 25, 26 pass rush snaps a game. That's been the high for him. So I think there's more in his tank as he develops.
This is such a hard question because it's easy to see a future where James Pearce leads the NFL in sacks. The Falcons decided Pearce was worth all this capital. If he dedicates himself to becoming a complete player this offseason, the gamble will have been worth it. If he doesn't, we'll be talking about this trade every week for the rest of James Pearce's rookie contract.